Yesterday night I was just on my computer typing up like my story, reminiscing about how just my year that I spent at Purdue University and all the expectations and all the things that I went through, and so I wrote it up and now I really want to share that. So without wasting any more of your guys' time, why I left Purdue University. So I'm going to start the story with the summer before I had to leave, you know, my hometown, my home, the place that I took for granted, the little bubble, the beautiful bubble of the Bay Area, the heart of the Silicon Valley, Cupertino, California, the place that I was born and raised in, and then moving to a rural college town in West Lafayette, Indiana. To start the story off, start in high school, right around the time when all the college acceptances were coming out, and I'd gotten rejected from the UCs that I wanted to go to, mainly, you know, the dream school of UCLA. I love LA, I love being in LA. Every time I go to LA, it's beautiful, it's amazing. Or still in Southern California, UCSB, and then ultimately facing a decision between going to a community college or a few options out of state. So truth be told, community college was never an option for me because of the weight from the negative connotations and stigmas that filled my head from my peers and classmates, and basically things like you were too stupid to get into a real university out of high school if you go to community college, and if you do end up going to community college, the result is you'll probably be in, like, the best job you can get is like working at McDonald's. So with that in mind and just a little bit of research, I figured leaving as far away from home to experience something completely new could be a great experience and ultimately like a change of pace. And so when I received my acceptance from Purdue, I was more relieved than anything else because I had a friend who was a couple years older than I was who was already attending, and I figured she could show me the ropes and help like my college adjustment period, show me around, help me get acquainted. And this person I won't name played a huge role in making me decide to go to Purdue. And I can still remember the day that we sat in her car for 6 hours that summer night. And basically it was just her going off telling me all the great things about the school and how she was absolutely loving her college experience and that I could share all those same sentiments with her. And so from that point on, I was not only convinced but super hyped to go, and I was glad that I had her there, and I was just looking forward to it from that point on. And so fast forward clip 6 months into the Purdue school year, we were getting lunch, and I remember telling her how disappointed I was with my experience and how sad and miserable I felt just being there, because honestly it fell short of all the expectations that I had. And basically she ended up telling me how 6 months in she felt the same way, and that when she started her second year, the day she walked into like her place, her new apartment or whatever, she started crying nonstop. And I remember her telling me the weather was shitty, and it was just shitty leaving such a beautiful place from where we're from in Cupertino, California, to being in like, you know, farmland, Indiana. And so she ended up even telling me that she convinced me to go because she figured it would be nice to have me there and to have me be with her and at least have someone from home going through the same thing, that we could like hang out and be there together, you know? And so that was kind of like a shocker for me, and that basically the truth came out 6 months in when I was already there and in it. And so rewind a little bit, back to the summer before I started. I remember vividly all the days I spent with my girlfriend and her friends, basically just hyping up that experience, going, oh, I'm about to go to Purdue, I'm about to have a great time, the time of my life, meet all my friends, just, you know, live it up basically. And I was so excited to leave because I envisioned this amazing life that was awaiting for me in a couple months, not knowing, not realizing all the things that were about to happen and all the things I would actually experience. So I had never been away from home for extended periods of time, and the longest I'd ever been away from home was science camp for a week in the 5th grade. And so I was ready to tackle a whole new experience, not really concerned with anything else other than how excited I was to leave. Looking back, some of the factors that played a huge role in how I felt with my experience there were those that people tell you really strongly consider before deciding on the college you want to go to. And these factors I completely ignored because I was just very ignorant and like a high school kid, and I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. So things like weather, things to do, places to eat, college culture, all those things. And so being in the Bay my entire life, I've never had to deal with snow or harsh weather. And so, you know, the only thing I knew about it was from like movies, Disney movies, and like snow is amazing and it's fun. If it does happen, it's cool, it's whatever. Like dealing with cold weather, I can just put like a hoodie or a jacket on, it's not that big of a deal. But once I got to Purdue and experienced snow for the first time and actually living in like that snowy environment, at first it was like, it felt like a Disney movie. When I could go outside to the food courts and like see snow everywhere, and it was cool and we were all enjoying it, but that feeling was honestly very short-lived. And eventually Indiana weather really started to take a toll on my mood, and honestly it was really taxing, to say the least, when it would be super hot that summer when I went, and then all throughout the seasons there would be random nightmarish storms and lightning sprinkled throughout the seasons, as well as temperature being below zero in the winters. So as someone who loves and appreciates good food from all different cultures, I can honestly say the food there is pure garbage, it's trash. And a lot of the people there are very uncultured when it comes to food. I remember, like, true story, I remember sending a screenshot of like me eating bomb ass sushi and like a bento box with like chicken teriyaki and like tempura to my roommate at the time, and he was hanging out with his friends, and all of his friends sent back like, oh, that's hella trash, that's disgusting, that's garbage, like just super uncultured, right? And so I was like, damn, this was already like signs, before I even went, signs of like, damn, very uncultured, they've never had sushi, they think it's disgusting, and stuff like that. And so just very uncultured people with food, especially, there's not many options too. I'm about to go into that right now. And the most exciting thing you can do there in your free time, besides like partying and whatever, is like go to a local movie theater. So Purdue is known for being a college town, so the best thing you could probably do is join a frat, go to parties, which is what the majority of the dudes do. That's what my roommate did. And the only places to eat nearby was like a mom and pop hot dog shop, a Panda Express, and like a Chipotle. And in the dorm I stayed at, called Tarkington, it was like a 30-minute walk to these places, and I would walk to the Chipotle and Panda all the time, even in the snowy seasons, because of how unappetizing and repetitive the food court food would be. And it got to the point where it was so bad that I would just honestly walk in the freezing winter temperatures all by myself in the snow at night, where there would be no one outside and no one in the restaurants, and it would just be me eating my Panda or Chipotle alone. So pretty depressing stuff, but I had all that time to myself to just think and realize that, yo, this is shitty, I need to get out of here. So before I go any further, I would just like to say that this is just my experience and my experience sharing like how I felt and what I went through, just to give a little bit of insight. And some of the common factors that I listed before are like sentiments that I shared with my peers and other people that I went to the university with. And what made things like worse but helped me cope, I guess, at the same time, that kind of duality, was that the people who I hung out with and spent all this time with shared the same feelings that I did when I was there. And we basically bonded over the fact that we were all miserable in Indiana, especially. I mean, I hung out with some kids who were also from the Bay Area, and they all hated it there too. And honestly, we all were like wishing we were somewhere else, and how we all made a terrible mistake by choosing to go here. By the end of that year, a couple of my friends were also lucky enough to either go home or transfer to a different university. And during my stay there, truth be told, I was forced to stay in a dorm that was smaller than my room back home. Shared with a roommate who I was cool with for the first week I was there, and then didn't talk to for the rest of the year until the final week right before I left, because he asked to confirm if I was leaving and never coming back. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm gone, and I'm never gonna look back. And so after taking a lot of time to reflect back on my experience, and talking to like other people about like, you know, what really went wrong and why I had such a terrible time, like a big part of it was probably my roommate. Like at first we had plans to be really close buddies and be best friends and do everything together and start this life together. Even before, you know, I moved there, we were texting back and forth, and he honestly played a huge part in why I had such a miserable experience over there. And like me being depressed and really sad every single day, not looking forward to the next day, and just wishing time would go by so I could go home and leave. But I wanted to finish out that year and not leave. But it was very early on that I knew like being there was not for me. And so on top of all the external factors that played into me being very isolated, imagine coming back to a dorm every day after class and making eye contact with your roommate and then not even speaking a word to each other for months on end. So there were specific incidents where I vividly remember him bringing back his drunk frat buddies and letting them crash in my shoebox of a room to snore away for the night. And after dropping them off, he would then leave and sleep at his frat house or wherever else he was staying at, away from the smell of sweat and puke of 4 dudes sleeping side by side on the floor and the futon right next to my little fucking little bunk of a bed. And then on top of that, he would randomly barge in at 3 or 4 in the morning randomly, presumably from his frat house commitments, and turn the light on whenever he pleased when he was like rushing or whatever, and having no regard or respect for me and acting like he didn't have a roommate, was trying to sleep for his 7 a.m. classes. So basically you could be asking at this point, dude, why didn't you just ask for a roommate or switch dorms? It's funny that you asked that because I did, and I went to the front office of Tarkington and I asked them, yo, I explained my situation, like I need a new roommate. And they said they would try and process that switch to see if there were any openings, but they just told me we can't guarantee anything because there's no, like this place is booked, and basically I was shit out of luck and never got called back for a switch. And the things that I was looking forward to and hyped about all that summer before going into Purdue, honestly, I overhyped it and it was a complete and utter disappointment to me. And I was truly miserable that whole year, like nothing to do, it was just all in all a terrible experience for me. But honestly, like reflecting back, I'm grateful for that experience, and I wouldn't take it back because of what I learned about myself and all the trials and tribulations that I went through that made me who I am today. I don't regret going through it, and I'm glad that it's over with and I'm moving forward with my life. And I don't have any regrets, despite how negative of an experience that was. And that year, like to shine some light on the positives, that year I had so much time to myself and allowed myself to think intrinsically for the first time in my life without being affected by public perception or negative stigmas to sway my thinking. Because like in high school, you're boxed in, and every little thing that someone has to say about you or every little thing that you go through, when someone says, that's all you know. When someone says it like, oh, community college is, you're gonna work at McDonald's for community college, so that's the wrong way to go. That becomes ingrained in your mindset because that's kind of how high school goes. And because I had all this time to myself, I didn't hear anything else other than focusing on what I was going through and how I felt. So I knew I was having a terrible time, I knew I was depressed, and I knew I had to get the fuck out of there. So I had hours upon hours every single day to myself and allow myself to just ask questions and think about if this was really how I wanted my college experience to be, and if I could stand this and be like, have that mentality and mindset where, fuck it, like this is shitty, but I'm gonna just get through it. Like, what kind of precedent is that setting for the rest of my life? Like, fuck it, I'm gonna work a shitty job and not enjoy what I do and just retire at 65. Like, no, fuck that, dude. I knew, like, okay, this is shitty and I'm miserable and depressed and I have to get the fuck out of here. I can't stand it. And so this is, if you're unhappy with something, like, get the fuck out of there. And that was the mentality I knew that I wanted to establish right then and there, and that I had to get out. So, or I could have said, okay, it's just a few more years, like a lot of other people who are also miserable and depressed. Basically that mentality of, it's only a couple more years, I'm gonna finish it out. I'm miserable and depressed also, but I'm just gonna stay because it's easier that way. And so, what kind of example basically would I be setting if I just allowed myself to be miserable and depressed for the remainder of what should be my prime and golden years, and what's commonly referred to as the best time of your life, years that you can never get back in your 20s, And so the people who I would spend a little bit of time with were also miserable and hated being there, as I talked about, but after talking with their parents, they had no choice but to stay. I was lucky enough to talk with my parents and explain my situation and have them take me back with love and open arms to allow me to pursue other options and ultimately transfer to UC, because at that point I was totally set that California is the greatest state and I was no longer going to take that for granted. And everyone from all over, even at Purdue, everyone was like, yeah, I want to move to California and get a job there. work at Apple and the spaceship and all that shit. And everyone from all over wanted to go to where I was living. So why the fuck would I leave the greatest place, living in the greatest comfortable place, and leave to Indiana? It didn't make any sense. So it was obviously a huge mistake. And the rest of the world was starting to catch on that where I'm from is the greatest place to work and live, to cultivate innovation and live comfortably. So when I did come home, I had a completely new outlook on life. My perspective had changed, and my appreciation for my parents was at an all-time high. I love spending time with my parents, and for the first time in my life, I started to have amazingly deep conversations that allowed me to connect with my parents that I never even considered or thought about before. I took classes at my community college that I was interested in and had so much time and freedom to enjoy all the blessings and luxuries that I took for granted before I left in my hometown of Cupertino. I started exploring new restaurants, going to all the restaurants in everywhere near my house, in Cupertino, in Palo Alto, whatever, amazing places to eat. And I was just happy to be home taking classes that I enjoyed, surrounded by my loving and supportive parents every day. And I was only able to have that new perspective and that new feeling from coming home because of my negative year at Purdue. And so despite Purdue being such a negative and depressing year in my life, and something that I look at and it was really sad and really taxing, it blossomed into something so beautifully positive that I wouldn't change it for anything. Everything worked out in the end, and when I finished my last quarter at the end of the community college just a few months ago, and moved and settled into my new home here in Santa Barbara, I can honestly say, and happy isn't even the word that can capture how I'm feeling, but just at peace with where I'm at, and trusting all this process, and going after what I want to do, and just being comfortable and enjoying all of this. And with this new healthy and fresh perspective on life, and with an open mindset, with no expectations but just planning and taking action for the best outcomes that I want to happen and I set out to accomplish, I'm truly looking forward to experience my last 2 years here in UC Santa Barbara, the school that I actually wanted to go to out of high school but didn't get into. And ultimately, if there's any message that I want you guys, the viewer right now, to take away from, is that you should never feel like you have to settle for anything that makes you feel less than your worth, or anything that is eating away your happiness and inner peace. You should continually fight and climb to where you want to be in life, and understand that it's your life and your responsibility alone for your happiness and well-being. If you're not happy with where you are, understand the situation and find a way to get out. It's no one's fault, it's just your responsibility, as the GOAT, the Will Smith likes to say. So for the potential prospective college students that might be watching this and might be thinking about attending Purdue, I can also say that I had classmates who ended up going to Purdue with me, and they claim to have a great time there. So it's not everyone goes there and they're miserable. There's people that actually go there and they have fun and they enjoy the experience. It's just that my experience was not the greatest. And once again, my experience is not the end-all be-all saying for the school itself. I'm just simply explaining how I felt about the school and my experience there. So what I can say is that the school did not suit my interests, did not live up to my expectations, and was not what I was looking for, and all the factors that go into choosing a college I did not really consider too much. So when I went, it fell well short, and I was very disappointed ultimately. So I hope me sharing this story was a small insight on what Purdue is like, and I hope it was a little bit informative on my part. And to keep it real and completely honest again, it just feels great getting this off my chest and putting it out there to share with you guys. Lastly, I want to say thank you truly from the bottom of my heart if you made it to the end of this video, because it means a lot to me. And let me know if you made it to the end by hitting that thumbs up, and if you care to show some love, subscribe, and because I love that feeling of getting a notification and seeing someone subscribed. It motivates me to get off my ass and come up with new ideas and share new insights with my life, and share this journey and document new things to get that creativity within me going. It really means a lot to me and fills me up with joy, motivates the hell out of me. So hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. It really means a lot. and it just keeps, I'll keep creating more content and continue this because honestly it's something that I love to do and can see myself doing it for a very, very long time, for the foreseeable future, because right now this is what I want to do, this is what I want to go after. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So once again, thank you so much if you made it to the end, and until next time, as always, with love and respect, have a good one. I'm out.